So before I start this video, let's just make a couple of things clear. The complaints in this video, I like to believe, are real and valid complaints about the K-pop community as a whole. They're based off of the mishandling of social justice issues and flaws within both the K-pop industry and fandom. I didn't decide to make this video because someone hated my fave song, and I would greatly appreciate if you treat the topics in this video with the sensitivity and respect they deserve. And if you disagree with what is said, we can discuss it like civilized people in the comments or on another social media platform. Also, I'm sure I'm going to get people saying, I'm a boy group stan and I don't do that, or I'm a girl group stan and I've never seen that. Just because you don't do it or haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It means you're lucky enough to not have seen it. I'm speaking from my experience with both types of fans, and if you don't relate to that, it's fine, but it doesn't mean that what I talk about in this video doesn't happen. A lot of girl group stans genuinely believe that standing women is synonymous to being a good person. The amount of fan wars that have broken out on girl group stan Twitter, where the person under fire thinks they can tweet a rosé fan cam with the caption "Stan women" and then all their sins are absolved. There's a superiority complex among girl group stans that isn't seen in boy group stans because of the idea that standing women is an admirable personality trait and something to be inherently proud of, even if the women they stan are bad people. And girl group stan Twitter is filled with some of the most unbearable people ever, and I want all of you to know that liking a girl group doesn't make you less of a shitty person. A lot of girl group stans use their identity as a girl group stan to excuse racism, sexism, etc., which leads me to my next point. The complete lack of understanding of what feminism is wouldn't bother me nearly as much if people didn't throw around the words so carelessly. There's so much bigotry amongst girl group stans from people who claim to be feminists, and it completely butchers feminism as it was meant to be, especially considering that these people aren't consistent at all when it comes to being a feminist. You're a feminist when it's time to defend Blackpink or Loona on Twitter, but you start spouting sexist bullshit the second you disagree with a woman you don't stan, for example, claiming all armies are, quote, fat white girls with blue hair. And even worse, this translates directly to how girl group stans handle problematic female idols. I know from experience that calling out problematic female idols directly translates to quote-unquote hating on successful women in the eyes of girl group stans. And these idols who have been openly bigoted and insensitive get to maintain their careers and become immune to criticism because if you dare to say something that's not positive about them, you're quote-unquote tearing down successful women. Boy group stans have their own shit to deal with, but at the very least I'll never have to explain to a boy group stan why standing men doesn't make them feminists. Now, this is not to say that there aren't plenty of examples of male privilege riddled throughout the K-pop industry, but this statement becomes harmful and counterproductive when male idols are receiving unjustified hate or when discussing racism against Asian men. And in general, it's just tasteless to see a male idol under fire for something and then immediately think about how you can make it about your faves. While male privilege does exist, there are plenty of instances in which male idols have been scapegoated or criticized for extremely stupid things, i.e. the 97 line scandal. And if it wasn't obvious enough, this is clear fake feminism coming from the people who say these things. There are genuinely productive conversations to be had about male privilege, especially in the way that female idols in scandals are treated as opposed to male idols, but there are ways to go about discussing these things, and immediately jumping at your chance to dance on a male idol's grave isn't one of them. This happens with both boy group and girl group stans, but I think it's a more common occurrence amongst girl group stans because of the whole "stan women for clear skin" mindset I just talked about. Girl group stans love a good sob story, and anytime a girl group or female idol goes viral for their struggles, you can bet girl group stans will flock to them. A perfect example of this is CLC. CLC got their first win after 5 years as a group only when fans had to beg people to support them so they wouldn't disband. It led to the title track they were promoting at the time, No, to be their most successful release at the time. But after all the hype for them died down, people eventually forgot about them, and none of their releases after would see the same amount of support that No did. And then recently, when Elki's departure from CLC was announced, interest in them renewed and people took to social media to express their so-called frustrations, tweeting things such as, K-pop didn't deserve CLC, despite the fact that 99% of these people weren't there to support CLC when they actually needed it, and only talked about them when they had a chance to get a hit tweet from talking about them. It once again stems from fake feminism and the general fascination with seeing idols struggle. And it's also connected to the idea that K-pop stans love the idea of an underdog, but not the underdog themselves, but that's a video for a different day. Overall, bandwagon standing is useless, and for people who are genuine fans of lesser known groups, it's frustrating to know that people only care about your group when they're on the verge of disbandment or when there's clout to be gained. Now I'll regale you with some of the worst moments to come out of girl group stan Twitter. The Blackpink pave their own way hashtag. Men can't pave the way for women. Openly and shamelessly making fun of BTS and justifying it with, they're men, so it's fine. Fancy was robbed. This is a clear symptom of internalized misogyny. In the eyes of not only boy group stans but in the K-pop industry, one average male idol is worth 3 extraordinary female idols. It's assumed that the best singers and dancers and rappers in the industry are all male, despite the fact that there are a plethora of female idols just as good, if not above the men in this field. There's so much importance placed onto men, and people generally expect so much more out of women than men because they get praised for doing the bare minimum. You all are okay with male idol mediocrity, yet if a female idol is anything short of perfect, she doesn't quote-unquote deserve to be in the position that she's in, hence y'all arguing that idols like Tzuyu or Jennie are quote-unquote overrated. This is despite the fact that there are plenty of male idols that can't come close to them in terms of talent. The constant comparisons to BTS every time another K-pop boy group achieves something just shows that BTS is the standard. Boy group stans are incapable of being proud of their groups without comparing them to BTS. These are also the same people who will argue until they're blue in the face that BTS didn't pave the way, yet can't seem to go a day without comparing other boy groups to them. And as much as boy group stans love to get mad at articles that call boy groups quote-unquote the next BTS, they fully feed into that narrative by using BTS and their accomplishments as a measure of success. This happens with both boy group and girl group stans, but it's more prevalent amongst boy group stans because of male privilege, but also on the flip side, the infantilization of Asian men. There are men who should have had their careers ripped away from them who continue to thrive in the industry because they're men and because their fans wholeheartedly support them despite their horrible actions. Fans will insist that these men are quote-unquote too innocent to take responsibility for their actions, educate themselves, and apologize regardless of age. And this sort of behavior leaks into how fans talk about and quote-unquote compliment male idols. The way in which fans talk about their male faves is exclusive to them because they're Asian. For example, a while back a person on Twitter made a tweet that says, "Before you do anything to your K-pop boys, I want you to think, would you ever do this to Drake?" Boy group stans then proceeded to make quote-unquote soft tweets replacing their K-pop boys with Drake, and many people pointed out how ridiculous it seems to talk about Drake the way you would a male idol. However, other people pointed out the subtle racist tone this trend has. People were laughing at this trend without realizing that it had just exposed a glaring issue with the way boy group stans treat male idols. Drake is around the same age as a lot of male idols in the industry, some of them even older than him. Why do people think it's appropriate to talk about their K-pop boys in a quote-unquote soft way, but it's ridiculous when people talk about Drake in that way? The answer to this is the over-masculinization of black men and the infantilization and feminization of Asian men. People would never talk about a black man the way they talk about an Asian man, and that's solely due to harmful stereotypes perpetuated against Asian men about their lack of masculinity. Every year, boy group stans find a new female idol or group to latch onto. I think this is partially due to the fact that some of them have fallen into the idea that, like girl group stans, standing women makes you a feminist. First it was Blackpink, then Twice, then Chungha, and so on and so forth. And I know a lot of people may think I'm trying to gatekeep girl groups and female soloists, but this wouldn't be an issue if boy group stans actually stan these women. In reality, it's just people claiming to stan a group or an idol because they're trending at the moment, but ultimately doing nothing to support the group or idol in question and then throwing them under the bus when it suits them. It's very reminiscent of the whole Army Once alliance that people were so vocal about in 2019, yet when voting season rolled around and it came time to actually support Twice, all the so-called onces were nowhere to be found. And most of these people using Twice as their token girl group were people who were criticizing them for their cute concept just months before they released Fancy, and then they finally became more palatable to boy group stans. I'm not trying to imply that there are no boy group stans who genuinely like Twice or other girl groups, but I can't help but point out the fact that there's a revolving door of girl groups and female soloist boy group stan Twitter claims until they get tired of them, and then they move on to the next. Now, like girl group stans, let's go over some of the worst moments on boy group stan Twitter in recent memory. The situation with Minyu from 17, the drunk driving scandal with Youngmin from AB6, Seungri in the entire Burning Sun scandal. Kick It deserved Song of the Year instead. Overall, both boy and girl group stans are equally annoying and have plenty of flaws. However, I personally find girl group stans more egregious. I'm likely biased in this due to the fact that I I am one and therefore I interact with them more, but boy group stans aren't far behind them. I'm sure there will be people arguing in the comments, so I won't bother asking you not to, but I'd like to ask that if you're going to argue, at least make your arguments well thought out. But yeah, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next one. Until then, bye!